My name's Mike Weishuhn,
I'm Drew Geant,
and we're co-founders of WyzAnt.
When I personally started at Princeton, I had absolutely no thoughts or aspirations of being an entrepreneur. I'm not sure about you, Mike, but
Growing up, my mom had her own business, but it was a smaller business, and there was no expectation of doing something as large as we've been able to accomplish coming into Princeton.
I was one of the guys who got swept up this may not be how everyone thinks about it, but for me, in hindsight, I feel like I got swept into the whole finance thing early on. Just all the chatter freshman, sophomore year about these big jobs you can get on Wall Street, and so I just went down that path kind of with everyone else and never stopped to really ask myself what I actually wanted to do. So that was how it transpired for me. Is it wasn't until I went into that career that I realized it wasn't for me.
I always had kind of a bent towards entrepreneurship, but it was never, never dreamed about what we were doing. So, while I was at Princeton, ELE 391 definitely inspired me to think more about what we could possibly do. It was really Drew after we graduated who kind of kicked me into action. Funny enough, while I was at Princeton, I started getting swept up a little bit in the kind of finance side of things. I was a finance minor, thinking that it would help me get a job on Wall Street, and I pulled back before actually doing too many interviews. And I think ELE 391 was probably part of that.
I took a job on Wall Street actually at Merrill Lynch, and backing up from there a bit. So while in college, one of the observations that we always had, Mike and I had talked about this, was how strange it was that the students at Princeton, despite all their abilities and just intelligence, seemed to be super underutilized in terms of their jobs, right? Like working in the cafeteria or the library or whatever it may be, making $9, $10 an hour. Yet then they'd all of a sudden graduate and get this magic diploma and make $100,000 a year. It didn't make any sense to us. So we kind of tucked that little nugget away. So then fast forward, and took a job on Wall Street. I did the summer internship. Yeah, so you do a summer internship before your senior year. At the end, they give you a full-time offer and $10,000 if you sign the full-time offer. This is before you even go back for your senior year of college. And so you have all this money that you've never had before, but you've already committed to the job. And so I went and spent some of that money, and before I even started working. Then while I was there, I realized, man, maybe I don't want to take this job, but I've already spent this money, so clearly I'm going to take this job. I have no other way to pay it back. And so I showed up in New York. I guess it's June or whatever is the first day of training, and I just knew it wasn't right. It was a gut sort of thing, and I literally the second week of training quit. I said, all right, I'll figure out a way to pay this back, but I'm out of here. This isn't for me. But I had no contingency plan. It's not like I thought of the idea for a company and then quit. I just quit with no idea what I was going to do. So I went back home, living with my parents in the basement, definitely not where I pictured myself after graduating Princeton, and started racking my brain on what am I going to do next? I need to figure this out. What do I care about? What's meaningful to me? And that led me thinking, wow, tutoring actually would be really meaningful. I was always good at math in college, and this is something I could do to bridge the gap while I really figured out my broader plan. And so it was one of those just kind of random ideas, started doing some tutoring, and literally immediately realized how broken the industry was. From a perspective of a tutor, really hard to find customers, no good tools to do it online. And then the weirdest thing is you finally find a customer and you're feeling so good about yourself, and every single one of those customers tells you, man, I wish I'd found you last year. It's so hard to find a good tutor for my kid, he's already behind. And then you get into the tutoring, and same sort of observations like that are just inefficiencies and things that could be fixed. So it was really quite obvious that there's some sort of opportunity there, and I wasn't sure what it was. And so Mike and I had a good relationship in college. We'd always drink beers and talk about one day, we did talk about starting a company. We had no idea what it would ever be, and it wasn't really tangible. But I knew Mike was interested in entrepreneurship, and gave him a call, and he had the computer science background, and he really conceived of this marketplace model that we ended up going towards. And that was how the idea for WyzAnt came about.
Yeah, so right after Drew quit, he started tutoring, and he kind of had the idea around starting a tutoring company, realizing that the the industry was broken, he came to me because of my background in computer science, and like he said, we were roommates in college, and had talked about here and there like what we were going to do and how we weren't really happy with the paths that we had chosen. So he immediately came to me, and we spent probably 8 hours a day for like a week talking on the phone. He was in Maine, I was in Michigan. It was the week before I was going to start up my business, or I was going to start my job. And before even starting the other job, we decided that Drew was going to move down that week. I think it was that weekend to Virginia. We were basically to DC, where I had taken the other job, and we were going to start working on WyzAnt.
I tried to convince Mike actually to just not even go to his first day of his job. I was like, dude, we can do this business. And Mike, I couldn't quite. He's like, I have all these student loans. I can't just go start a business with you, man. So I was like, fine. I was living with my parents. I had zero downside at this point. So I was like, fine, I'll move to DC, and I'll work on this during the day, and you working on it at night, and we'll try to get some proof of concept. And that's what we did. And 6 months later, we had $3,000 a month in like gross sales, and so we were like, oh my god, we totally made it. Like we can absolutely live on this, make this a business. And for us, based on our business model, that was like $600 of revenue. But for whatever reason, it felt like a lot, and it felt like proof of concept, which I guess it was, and we took the plunge. WyzAnt's a marketplace for tutoring and private lessons. Essentially, what we've done is taken an industry that was really broken and fixed it, and in doing so, using technology. So what we've done is we've made tutoring more affordable, accessible, and really effective for both parties, the tutors and the students. On the tutor side, it's really great and gratifying. What we're able to do is empower these really smart people from all over the country, many of whom are already tutors, but a lot aren't, and give them a way to have an independent business and to do what they love, which is teaching. And similarly, on the student side, we've used technology to kind of reduce the price point and improve the economics, and just make it easier to find tutors. So more people are getting tutoring, and we're also layering in some tools and processes to actually make the tutoring more effective.
So initially, because we were bootstrapped, we didn't actually hire a third employee for about 2.5 years. Then we hired a third employee who was actually one of Drew's friends from high school. And our fourth employee, fourth or fifth, I can't remember, was a fellow Princeton graduate who was Drew's old college roommate. And finally, once we actually started getting into more senior roles, like our CFO, we actually leveraged the Princeton network. We reached out to some relatively senior people in Chicago and started networking with them, and one in particular took a liking to us and is actually an investor, small part investor, but he set us up with a great CFO that he knows, that he knew at the time, and from then it's been really, I think, leveraging our network and getting to know people has been the key way of attracting talent. And also, WyzAnt has a good mission. It's a profitable company. So we get a lot of people who have been burnt out of doing something that it wasn't fulfilling to them. So it's been easier to recruit quality people, I think, than for some other companies. In 2009, we actually made some bad budgeting decisions and hired
As in, like, no budgeting.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a decision. It's more just a lack of budgeting.
But yeah, in 2009 we made some no budgeting decisions, and we ended up having to let people go. That was extremely difficult because it was nothing that those people did, and it was the first time we'd ever had to fire anyone. It was completely on us, and it's a day I will not forget. I think we let 2 or 3 people go in a single day, which at the time was probably a third of the company.
So early on, Mike was working. I was a source of income, and he put a lot of that towards the company. I was doing a lot of tutoring. So this is like, we're talking small amounts here, but that was what we were trying to fuel the business with very early on. I think once we kind of hit that like proof of concept stage, we said, well, it would be really great to have a little bit of money that we could invest in marketing and other things. Like, I mean, we were really scrappy. Like our kitchen table was like $25 from Salvation Army, and we would sit at the opposite ends of this table, like facing off in our kitchen. We'd also always rent like these apartments or houses with a bunch of extra rooms and just like re-rent them to people at a premium, and just do all kinds of things like that to make it so we didn't actually need much capital. But what we did, we did bring on $10,000 ultimately from one of our college buddies, my sister, and Mike's uncle. that was the paying capital on for the first, actually literally for the first 8.5 years. So then it was all just about growing the business and reinvesting all the money that was coming in back into the business and being scrappy. And yeah, we were lucky to continue to have a very cash efficient model, and that people will prepay for tutoring and then we'll pay the tutor out over time. So there's just like reverse working capital dynamic that has always enabled us to reinvest in the business at a high rate. But anyway, to complete that out, so then this fall, 2013, we just raised $21.5 million from Accel partners, and yes, so we went from 10,000 to 21.5 million. But that's all part of a plan to really try to take things to the next level. We've definitely had mentors, and they've been helpful to us. I would say one part of our kind of DNA and continues to be our culture today was this idea of we can figure it out. This mentality of let's just go learn, and the internet was our best friend for that. So at times that led us to mentors when we were trying to solve a particular problem, but often we would just kind of invent things on our own. And so it wasn't like we had this brain trust from day one. There were a few people here and there that we'd reach out to on specific topics. In fact, one of them was Professor Chow. We chatted with a handful of times early on. But for the most part, it was just kind of making stuff up. It was our approach. And yeah, certainly now that it's a bigger company, we have to kind of do things according to certain conventions and governance and things along those lines. But early on, it was very creative, and we weren't trying to repeat any sort of formula. I mean, no one had ever made a tutoring marketplace before. In fact, there wasn't even really a sharing economy back then. This was we just stumbled onto this concept, and so we weren't following any particular path or roadmap.
And I mean, sometimes that led us down a bad road that I think mentors would have been able to really help with. And like Drew said, now that we actually have a larger network, we're definitely leveraging mentors whenever possible.
Oh yeah, I would say in the last few years, it's been a ton of that, and people have been so helpful, whether it's the Princeton network or the Chicago tech scene, or just random people that you connect with on LinkedIn. Like, people want to help you out, especially if they can tell you're passionate and you're doing this for the right reasons and trying to build something meaningful. Like, it's amazing what people will go out of their way to do for you just to help you out.
The name WyzAnt actually comes from the desire to have a really small, a short domain name initially, and one that wasn't taken because we didn't have any money. So my last name is Weishuhn, and his last name is Geant, and so we just mashed them together and said WyzAnt.
However, it's a WyzAnt, clearly. Also, we've learned, well, some people were like, oh, you must have an aunt who's very smart. I was like, my aunt thought that for a while. That wasn't it. There's also like a biblical reference to a wise ant, which we've learned. Apparently there's like some fable about wise ants. So, it's worked on a few levels.
The culture of WyzAnt is very laid back. There's an expectation of excellent work and hard work. But yeah, it's very laid back. I mean, if you can't tell, we're pretty laid back people. I mean, we come into work with Bogey, and sometimes my dog's in work as well. But that being said, everyone's really passionate about what they do and how they do it. And as a result, I think we end up creating some pretty amazing stuff. I mean, it's been a deliberate process to create and shape that culture. One of the first things that we always ask after we interview someone is, how do you think they would fit within WyzAnt? How do you think they would they thrive? Would they survive? Or would they kind of die within the culture? And we've made some bad choices over the years, and when you realize that you've hired a person who doesn't fit within the culture, and you need to take actions to rectify that, which isn't always fun. Actually, it's never fun. But yeah, I mean, it's something that you need to curate very deliberately. We aren't as deliberate about it as some people. Like we don't necessarily have the the commandments written up on the wall, but it's more of an underlying tenets that we all the people we hire all live by.
We continue to be co-founders. But yeah, so Mike's obviously the tech guy, and I was kind of default to everything else, including the one-man customer service department for a few years even early on. But yeah, now we have 75 employees now. We're just entering this phase two that's really cool. Where we're like hiring these experts, these gurus at whatever discipline it may be, technically or design or even finance. When we brought our CFO on, that was the first experience of like, wow, how empowering it can be to bring on people who are smarter than you. And that's for me personally, my job today is a lot around building the team because we're trying to grow very aggressively. It's a lot around working with Mike and some of the other stakeholders to define the strategy and make sure we're running at the right strategies. And there's some work that we do together on process and org and that sort of stuff. I'm also kind of point person for our investors. So that's like just a glimpse into my set of responsibilities today. But that's obviously very different from early on when I was like writing all the copy for the website and one-man customer service department and in-house, the worst in-house counsel ever, the worst CFO ever. But like you gotta get by and. Yeah, it's cool. I would say that's the number one thing I love about this experience is the ability to have a different job every year or even every 6 months and to just learn all these different areas of the business. I don't know if Mike, you want to add to how your role has changed? But yeah,
my role. Well, actually, I'll first agree with Drew that he was the worst CFO ever. But my role has changed a lot. Like in the beginning, I was kind of part weekend customer service, but mostly developer. Then it transitioned into performance marketing while developing. Then it was development manager, all while helping to build the team and build the culture and kind of define process. Now as CTO, I have as CTO and co-founder. I have different responsibilities across the entire company. I mean, with between product, marketing, high-level business, like investment. It's just it's an ever-changing role, and it makes it exciting. I never thought I would start a company like this, but I really never thought I'd be at one place for 9 years, and that was only possible because our roles have changed so much from year to year.
I would say conflict has been like the source of some of our greatest thinking and ideas and decision making. It's from day one, like Mike and I have always battled, and usually what comes out of that battle is the right choice. 30 minutes after the battle, we're back to being totally aligned, and it doesn't matter whose idea or plan won out. It's just that process that's been really healthy people, because Mike and I go so far back and have been friends since freshman year of college. Like, it doesn't really faze us, to some of these tips we've learned. Though we need to somehow, like, now that we have people watching us go at it, we've had to dial it back a bit. Like, people have been at times we've got some feedback to suggest that it was unnerving to some new employees. But yeah, that conflict, and it's we rule by consensus, like, and we brought other people into these conversations, and again, it's whatever path we choose as a group, we all then stand behind and support and don't second guess. And it's a good question because it's been such a huge part of how we've operated.
Yeah. But I think what's made it, conflict can be either. Oddly enough, like unifying and like help you get towards where you want to go, or it can be it can completely tear a company apart. One of the things that I think Drew and I are really able to do is underlying conflict is trust, and that like we know that we have WyzAnt's best interest at heart. It's not one person jockeying for position over another. We have WyzAnt's best interest at heart, but then also kind of being able to compartmentalize. So we can have, like Drew said, we can have a meeting where like, you can cut the tension with a knife, and then it'll go from 3:29 to 3:30. We have to start a meeting on a new topic, and we're normal, and everyone else is like still on edge. So just being able to manage that conflict and like making sure that it comes from the proper motivations is really important.
Those first 3 years of bootstrapping, 3.5 years, it wasn't until 2010, honestly, where we were like, okay, we're probably here to stay in some fashion. There was always an element of uncertainty. I mean, we ran a very, this is probably Mike's comment about me being the worst CFO. I will say we never missed paying the tutors. We never missed paying rent. We certainly missed paying ourselves plenty of times. But yeah, we ran it very close to the edge. We created a lot of like internal leverage with this this business model that I was explaining before, and yeah, so it was always very scary for the first 3.5 years. And that Mike mentioned when we had to let people go was a big point where we were like, okay, these numbers don't work. We are out of business in 6 weeks if we don't let people go. So that uncertainty was a good driver of motivation, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was especially like Drew said in the first couple of years. I mean, it was difficult. We had a lot of our peers. They had taken really good jobs right out of college, and I think our W-2s for the first 2 years were like 17 grand or like 16 grand. So that was really tough. Like we were making significantly less than minimum wage, and leveraging our credit cards for the best of our abilities. And there were times where you had to do a serious gut check and say, is this really for me?
Speaking personally, I certainly plan to be involved in 3 to 5 years. Although that's such a distant future. Like we only recently are now able to look a year down the road. It's hard. Things change so fast. But in terms of where the business is going to be, there's no doubt that international is going to be a big part of what we're doing in 3 to 5 years. Just in our particular space, tutoring and supplemental education is actually way bigger internationally relative to the size of those international markets than it is even in the U.S., which is a huge market. And there's just all kinds of great new developments within education technology that will certainly be layered into our experience, whether that's the kind of the MOOCs, and asynchronous learning and adaptive platforms, and obviously virtual like synchronous interaction through online platforms. There's a lot that we can do to just enhance the experience, but at the end of the day, we'll always be a personalized learning company that delivers like a very customized, targeted learning experience by connecting people. And so it's not gonna be a drastically different business in 3 to 5 years in my mind. It'll just be more robust with various technologies. No, I mean, zero regrets. It was the luckiest kind of confluence of circumstances that could have happened. I mean, I feel so blessed to have gone down this path and everything that we've learned. So zero regrets. If anything, I would have gone into college with this mindset of being an entrepreneur, and I think there's probably more I could have learned and been more prepared for the first few rocky years. But that was all. Honestly, I don't have any regrets about that either. That's all part of the process.
Yeah, same here. I have no regrets. There's the whole process has been so fulfilling, educational, and yeah, it's a feeling that I think would be really tough to get anywhere else. When you look around, you see people who don't enjoy their jobs. You feel really lucky that we've stumbled into what we have. Not to say it was easy. Like we said earlier, there were times where you didn't know if you could go on, but at the end of the day, we've been pretty lucky that we've come out on the upside.
Yeah, I would just say, because this is geared at, presumably Princeton students are watching this, starting a company the year you graduate college is the absolute best time. Like I've now interacted with a lot of entrepreneurs over the last, however many years, and you see people who are 10 years into their careers and now have a certain standard of living, and people that are depending on them, and it's really hard to go out on the, take this massive plunge once you get down. And people do it all the time. Don't get me wrong; it's not impossible. I would encourage anybody to think about being an entrepreneur. But it's a unique opportunity when you graduate from college. You have really no one relying on you. You certainly have no standards of living, having lived in the dorms for 4 years. You can be scrappy, and you have almost no downsides. Like in 2 years, it doesn't work, 3 years, whatever, like big deal, then go become whatever else you want to become. But definitely, if you're on the fence, should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? Like, do it. Now's the time to definitely give it a shot.
Yeah, I'll second that. Coming out of college, there's the fiscal and kind of lifestyle expectations that are really kind of conducive to starting a company. But then there's also, we were full of both of these things, kind of like an element of like ignorance and hubris that you won't have 10 years after you've kind of gone through the world, that will, in a way, enables you to make decisions that you wouldn't 10 years from now. Enables you to do risky things that you wouldn't have done otherwise. That I think is really positive. They sound like negative qualities, but that's how things get fundamentally questioned. The idea of ignorance is that like you don't know what's not possible, and it really enables you to question what other people think is not possible.
When we started the company, it was based on this notion that college students would be excellent tutors because they were being underutilized. All these smart kids at Princeton, working in the cafeteria. There's nothing wrong with working in the cafeteria, but it felt like there was an opportunity there. Their skill sets and what they were learning in college, if you're a biology major, is perfectly parallel to what a high school student might need a tutor for. So that was like a big founding concept for us. And we went out, and that's actually where we started. We went to all these campuses and put up flyers and put flyers under windshield wipers in the student parking lots and told everyone, go sign up on this website if you want to make $25 an hour being a tutor. And so it was narrow, and it was also just in Northern Virginia. It was like a really small kind of original concept, but that was the perfect way to get started. And we were able to do the same thing on the demand side, which is using flyers and outdoor signs, and there's like all kinds of funny stories around some of the guerrilla tactics we used to use, but maybe that's for another day. But yeah, and so we then got this thing up and running. The website was really clunky, but it started to work, and we learned so much in this very narrow band around the unit economics and conversion rates, and we began to dabble into paid search and other online channels and a very small scale, a couple $100 a month type budget. But it was a perfect sandbox for us. And then once we had the platform that was kind of beginning to click a little, we realized, well, there's no need to restrict this to just college students on the supply side. And we opened it up, and then we started getting all these teachers and adults and even professors and engineers who were doing tutoring part-time. It was really, really pretty cool. But I think there's a lesson there in starting with something that's achievable, but that you can then evolve from.
Yeah, I think it actually goes back to the ignorance point, to thinking about how could you build a massive national company with the two founders driving around at midnight posting up signs on the side of Leesburg Pike.
We would so what we do, the tactic was there's really bad traffic in DC, so you have to do this. If you're interested, you got to do it at 2 a.m. And you drive around, and it's helpful to be 6'5", and both Mike and I are very tall. You drive around with these signs, a hammer and nails, and you stand on top of the car, and you reach up as far as you can on the telephone pole so that no one else is going to be able to reach your sign. And you hammer it in, and we did this all over Northern Virginia. And one day we got a call, the next morning, we got a call from the Bethesda chief of police or something, and he's like, you violated an ordinance in Bethesda. And every one of these signs, if you don't remove it in the next, he gave us 24 hours, it's going to cost you $500. We had put up maybe 60 signs. We probably had $500 total in the bank account. We're like, oh shit, we're going out of business. We are totally screwed. We had no idea where we put these signs. And then now we're trying to go through traffic all day, trying to find all these signs. It was a total disaster. We thought that was the end of WyzAnt was. Yeah. But you got to be scrappy, and obviously it was surprisingly effective.
Yeah, it worked well. Yeah. The other thing that we would do was because the original idea around WyzAnt was to get college students and match them up with high school kids. So Thursday or Friday, we go around to the student parking lots at the local universities. So George Washington, Georgetown, George Mason, American, and put little slips of paper, little flyers under the windshields of these cars, because we knew that they're students and they probably needed money and they had cars so they could travel to the actual high school students. And then Friday night, we'd go to like all the wealthy high schools in the neighborhood and put flyers under all of the parents' cars while they were out watching the football game. And so we have tutors signing up Friday morning and parents signing up Saturday morning and matching them up. And the tutors are like, wow, this is amazing. I get students already. But obviously not a scalable tactic, but it's something that kind of enabled us to learn the dynamics of the marketplace and how we could scale. My name is Michael Weishuhn.
I'm Drew Geant. This is Bogey.
And we are Princeton Entrepreneurs.